So, Mark and Jill, we are so excited to be able to chat with you on the Team Us podcast. So, thank you for
Mm.
joining us.
Oh,
Ah,
we're glad to connect with you and
yeah,
just have
thanks for
this.
having us.
Yeah.
So, we love to hear how God has brought couples together. And so, could you share with us how you first met, and then also talk about how God restored your marriage after infidelity?
Okay.
Well, let's see. We met on a blind date.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
We met, we had friends of ours who they both knew each of us, but we didn't know each other. And they kept saying, you got to meet, you got to meet, you got to meet. And finally, I was like, okay, I'll meet her, but then I never want to hear about it again.
Same. I was exactly the same. Like, fine, one time. That's
Yeah.
it.
So we met at my house, and I was in a family business. We worked all the time. I was habitually late. So
So yeah, the friends and I arrived early and we're
yeah,
sitting on his porch waiting for him.
yeah. And so I pull up, and I'm kind of looking around in my vehicle, but really I was trying to get a scope on Jill, like what she look like. Is she ugly? And my whole thing was, if she's ugly, I'll leave. And then I had this awareness. Oh, we're at my house. That's not very smart, Mark. So man up and get out of the car, dude. And so I walked up, and Jill just fell madly in love immediately.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't quite go that way, but
But seriously, though, we did. We had a lot in common. We connected and
yeah,
we started dating. And 3 months later, we were engaged. And 6 months after that, we were married. So we got married before we'd known each other an entire year.
yeah,
Not that we would
Nice.
recommend that, but
no,
it is what happened.
Yeah, we had a pretty fast. I think it was a little over a year
Just about a year,
between
right.
when we met and
yeah,
got married.
Yep.
yeah.
Yep.
We, yeah, so Jill and I say we married and grew up together, and uh, that made it hard at times, but I think what we know now, it would have been hard anyway until we really discovered uh, what we were both packing, or what I was packing in my relationship with Jill.
Yeah, I mean, we were both packing it, but you definitely brought a lot of baggage from a really traumatic childhood
Yeah.
into marriage. And that was the heart of what happened.
Mm.
So when we'd been married 28 years, and
Hmm.
that 28 years had been up and down, up and down, up and down for a variety of reasons. I mean, we brought our own humanness into the relationship, obviously. We had attachment styles playing out. I was an avoider. Mark was
I was
anxious and
yeah,
vacillating back and forth in his anxious attachment. And so we were like, we had that dynamic playing out that we didn't really fully understand. And and then we had been in ministry for 20 years, and Mark left pastoring, and that actually he felt like that would be a relief, and it was initially, but it actually threw him into a midlife crisis.
yeah. In leaving pastoring, I was worn out, and honestly, a lot of my same attachment was playing out regarding the church, and then also regarding God. That I had these huge expectations to connect, and to create environments, and just that wasn't happening in the church, and that also I felt very I was very disillusioned with God. It's like, I'm busting my tail for you, buddy, and I'm just getting the tar beat out of me. And so when I left, I started a construction business, which is really, I had done home repairs, home remodels, all of ministry. And I kind of was like Peter when he went back to fishing. You know, he's frustrated. He went back to fishing. I went back to carpentry, because a two by four will not argue with you about what it's not. And anyway, we I I really became just lost in not being a pastor anymore. My life hadn't rolled out the way I thought it would, and I found myself in a full-on midlife crisis, affair included.
Mm-hmm.
And I eventually left Jill and my family believing that this new pursuit was going to be the cure-all.
Yeah, but as you say,
Yep.
the problem is you took somebody with you, and
And
that
that
was
person
you.
was a mess, and that was me. And really, I praise God for helping me to realize that. And I'm also very thankful that Jill was very willing to work things out and to pursue a new us.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a dark year. I mean, for sure. It was an entire year where he was just not
Mm,
himself. He was checked out. He was eventually actually left. And um, God taught me a lot during that dark year. And I'm so grateful. We now
mhm,
offer an online course, and it's called The Wait Is Not Wasted. And it's
mm,
for when somebody has a spouse that's checked out, and for you to recognize that
mhm.
one of the most beautiful opportunities you have when you're waiting is personal growth, because that became a season of huge personal growth for me.
Mhm.
Well, I love that you guys are willing to be vulnerable with your story in order
Mm,
to help other couples. I mean,
mm.
I
It's
just,
important.
Yeah.
it's, I am grateful that you guys are willing to do that. And you have a book called No More Perfect Marriages,
Mhm.
Yep.
and you talk about dysfunctional love styles. And I think you may have kind of alluded to that
Mhm.
previously, but could you share what those are and how understanding them has helped your marriage and could help other marriages as well?
Yeah. Well, one of the things that we've come to understand is most marriages are a dog married to a cat. And the dog represents what we call anxious attachment, and the cat represents avoidant attachment. And so, a large majority, I mean, we do have cats married to cats and dogs married to dogs, but I think it's about 80% are dogs
Mm.
married to cats. And that was us.
Yep.
I was the
So
cat,
I
and
was
he
the
was the
dog.
dog.
I was running around. Hey, 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 look at me, look at me, look at me. Let's play ball. Let's go do something. Come on, come on, come on, come on.
And I was the cat going, man, you are so needy. Would you just like cool down, like calm down? We're fine. We are
And
fine.
I would go be fine. And then 2 minutes later, hey, 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 you want to play? You want to get together? Come on, come on, come on, come on.
And
Yeah, we
so
were a mess.
that so that's the heart of what attachment styles are. We were first introduced to it through Mylan and Kay Yurkovich's book, How We Love.
Hmm.
And so they call them love styles, but basically they're attachment styles. And the basic attachment is avoidant and anxious
Mhm.
and secure. So we initially thought we had a Mark and Jill problem, but what we learned is we actually had an avoidant anxious problem.
Mhm.
And we've really worked hard and done the work to become more secure
Right.
individually. So now our marriage is primarily secure. And I've left avoidant behind, he's left anxious behind. So, in general, what did that look like? So, for me, anxious or avoidant was what we like to say is people with avoidant attachment are emotionally constipated.
Mhm.
And people with anxious attachment are they have emotional diarrhea. And what we want is to become regular.
Yes. Yeah.
That's a very good way. Like you remember that.
You do
Right.
remember
Yeah.
it. You're
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so where I had to, so I grew up in a buck up home. It was a loving home, a loving family, but we did not do emotion. So if life got hard, you just bucked up. And so I brought that into our marriage. I believed that was strong. I believed that was right. I believed that was what everybody should be, because
Mm.
that's the way, that was my normal. And, it has some sunshine side to it. Like if you have an emergency in your life, you kind of want me in your corner because I don't get all emotional about it. I am able to stay steady. So there's a good side to it. But the bad side was I wasn't highly compassionate. I wasn't highly
Mhm.
compassionate with my sensitive husband or my sensitive children. And so I had to really learn how to have that compassion, how to learn to empathize, validate instead of just shutting down their emotion.
And for me being anxious, uh, because of the environment I grew up in, it was very chaotic and trauma filled. But for many people, they don't have the trauma, but they have the chaos. And so connection was very uh, haphazard. And so I'd connect with my family, my parents, but it was never enough. My mom and dad divorced when I was 2, so I dealt with rejection and feeling like my dad chose another family, another woman over my mom, another family. And so I came into adulthood just wanting more connection. And that's what drove that hyperness of like a little dog, that I wanted connection with Jill, and it was never enough to satisfy. I also, because of the home I grew up in, I fantasized about what my family would look like when I was an adult. And the problem was, I didn't have any idea what was healthy or how to achieve what I desired. And so I came into marriage craving more.
It's almost like he had a Disneyland picture and it never matched up to it. So he was perpetually discontent.
Yep.
Even if things were good between us, he wanted it more or better because he had the Disneyland picture in his brain of
Hmm.
that fantasy, and it was never enough. And so we were dealing with that dynamic
Yeah.
all of the time.
Mm.
Sounds like if did that feel like there was a lot of pressure then
It
on the
did.
relationship?
Oh, yeah.
It did. And it left me. I mean, I've never personally felt like I wasn't enough. Like, I haven't struggled with that. Some people struggle with that emotionally for themselves. But in our marriage, I felt like that.
Hmm.
So, sex was never enough. Communication was never enough.
Dates were
Dates were
not.
never enough. Yeah, we'd
Yeah.
go on a vacation, he'd want another vacation. It was never enough. Like he was constantly disappointed. And so after a while, you almost kind of throw your hands up and go, I can't satisfy you. And that's what we were
Yeah.
dealing
Well,
with.
and that I'd say that happened, and that was not because of what you did, but we started a spiral from that disappointment that ultimately led to disillusionment on my part. And
Yeah, because when you sit in that discontentment day in, day out, day in, day out, you become disillusioned, disappointed, and then eventually disconnected.
yeah,
And then you start to believe, and this happens a lot with anxious attachment. It can happen with either one, but you start to believe, oh, there's got to be somebody out there that's better, or
yeah,
there's got to be something out there that's better.
hmm,
And, um, you're just sure. And then, if indeed you make that connection to someone else, you're convinced, like Mark was, that this is the answer. But he ended up being in the relationship long enough that it started to have conflict. And that's
Mm.
what woke him up to go, oh, wait a minute, maybe this really isn't the answer. Maybe, maybe it's actually me. And
yeah. I would say I was stronger. Like, oh my gosh, this this was a terrible mistake. It's ended up rolling out exactly the way uh, I understood when I was in the healthy when I was healthy. I have made this mess, uh, and digging out of that mess was terribly overwhelming to me. But as a Christ follower, I ended up just yielding and trusting Daddy God. And uh, the picture for me is that I really humbled myself. like became little Marky Savage in diapers going, okay, Dad, I got your hand. Where are we going? What do you want to do?
How we're
And
gonna clean up this mess.
yeah, 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 I made a mess here, didn't I? What do we do about that? And he just one step at a time led us through it. And Jill and I both, we didn't want to go back to the way things were. We just knew that things weren't their best. And so we were very committed to discovering a Mark and Jill 2.0, which for us symbolized new, fresh, uh, long enduring, and most certainly better than what we had been.
Yeah.
Well, and you guys talk about some of the tools that you
Yeah.
have learned and that you use. I think in No More Perfect Marriages, you share 8 of those tools. Could you talk about some of those and why using them is important?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we discovered, I mean, when we got to the other side of healing our marriage, coming out with Mark and Jill 2.0, we're like, how is Mark and Jill 2.0 different than Mark and Jill 1.0? And we started identifying some of these ways that we now respond to each other or respond to conflict or difficulties in our marriage. And so eventually we found those I mean, we started like labeling them and
Right.
naming them.
Right.
And for instance, courage is one of the tools that we talk about in No More Perfect Marriages. And I needed to use courage to find my emotions, to reconnect to my emotions. I would have just said, I'm just not a highly emotional person. But in reality, the truth is, I had shut them down over the years because my family didn't do emotion, because I had some traumatic events in my life. I didn't grow up with trauma, but I had some traumatic events where nobody tended to what was happening to me emotionally. And so what did I do? I told myself, well, you just buck up. You don't deal with that. You just shove it down. And so I had to use courage to find my
Yeah.
emotions.
And I had to use courage to find my voice, to find my identity. I had been told that, in essence, my voice didn't matter. I didn't matter. And so I came into marriage very confident until our first conflict. And then it was like from there, I became very passive and I didn't know what to do. So I reverted back to being silent. And so uh, I had to use courage to find my voice and to be willing to see conflict as healthy rather than as something to fear or to run away from.
Yeah.
Um,
Another one is grace. And grace is uh where we give our spouse the space, or we call the grace space, to be human and to not get raked over the coals for every little human thing that we do. So it's how we handle harmless human habits,
Mm.
which a lot of times we will turn into a mountain, and it's really not a mountain. And so for instance, I have a tendency to lose my sunglasses all the time. I mean, I do. I lose them all the time. And
Amen, sister. She
and,
does. It's amazing to me.
and for the longest time, he would shame me every time I would lose
Yeah.
them, or he would say something kind of mean, like, I can't believe that you cannot hold on to sunglasses. It's ridiculous. You are a grown woman. Why can't you hold on to your sunglasses?
And that was just my own selfishness because I took it very personal. And then I had the awareness that this is not about me. Why are you behaving this way? And so I took Jill on a date. We went to the Dollar Tree and we walked hand in hand to the basket aisle. And I said, pick out a basket, Jill, whichever one you want. It needs to be rectangular uh, or a large circle. And so anyway, she picked the basket, and the whole time she's, what are we doing? What are we doing? And then I took her over to the sunglass tree and I said, pick 10 pair. And so we go about 3 or 4 times a year to refill the basket. But hey, it's from the Dollar Tree. It's not that big of a deal.
Yeah. And so now I go, I can't find my sunglasses. Where are my sunglasses? He goes, I don't know, babe, but here, pick a pair.
Yeah.
And then Mark, he spills his coffee all over my freshly mopped kitchen floor, a lot. And I viewed that as an offense because I'd mopped the floor, but I realized this is a harmless human habit.
Mm-hmm.
So by giving him grace, I just clean it up. I just
Mm.
go, you know what? For the rest of our married life, I can clean up coffee spots and serve my husband that way. And so you have to have something to do with that inside of you. And grace is the answer, because grace is a gift from God that is undeserved, right? And so so what we say is, if your spouse hurts you, use your God tool of forgiveness. That's another God tool. And if your spouse irritates you, use your God tool of grace.
Yeah.
I love that. Like Ted will cook and make lots of dishes and make a big mess. And I went through a period where that would bother me because there was so much to clean up. But now I've started, when I'm cleaning up, I'm going, thank you, Lord, that Ted made dinner and I
Yep.
didn't
Yeah.
have to cook. It's
Right.
just that shift in perspective that is
Yes.
so helpful.
And
Okay,
it
that's
changes how you feel on the inside.
right. Yeah,
Mhm.
it does. And I think it takes that tension out of the relationship in that area, which is
Yep.
just so nice. All right. Well, you
Yeah.
Yeah.
have even more tools and resources because I feel like we could just keep talking. So, can you let listeners know where they can find you online, where they can get more of your resources, where they can find out more of these tools?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely. Just go to markandjill.org, markandjill.org, and you can find our online courses. You can find information about our coaching and our marriage intensives. And then we also have different curated sections of our website. So if you click on marriage, it'll give you like for happy marriages, for hurting marriages, for marriages dealing with infidelity. And you can find all of our podcasts, all of our blog posts on those particular topics. So, yep, markandjill.org.
Okay, great. Well, thank you again for joining us on the podcast. We're very grateful.
Mm.
Thanks for having
Yeah.
us.
Thank you.